What does it sound like when a city dies? Is it a scream, a roar, or is it a song? For the world's most famous opera singer, standing in his suite at the most luxurious hotel on the American continent, it was a sound he would never forget. He had sung for kings and queens, but on this morning, the earth itself was screaming a new, terrifying aria. He wasn't just a witness to a disaster. He was standing at the epicenter of the moment an American empire turned to ash. This isn't just the story of an earthquake. It's the story of a fire that devoured a city's soul, a catastrophe born from pride, and a fight for survival against an enemy that couldn't be killed. Hello and welcome back to TSF History, the channel where we dig through the dust of the past to uncover the incredible stories that shaped our world. If you believe history is more thrilling than any blockbuster movie, then you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a journey back in time with us. April 17th, 1906, San Francisco, California. This was not just a city, it was a testament to the American dream, written in gold and steel, the Paris of the West. In less than 60 years, it had exploded from a muddy frontier town into the 9th largest city in the United States. It was the financial, cultural, and industrial heart of the American West. Its hills were crowned with the mansions of railroad barons and gold rush millionaires. Its port welcomed ships from every corner of the globe. Its streets were a chaotic, intoxicating blend of cultures: Irish, Chinese, Italian, German, all chasing a piece of the California dream. The city was audacious, arrogant, and beautiful. It was a city built on the very edge of the continent, a city that believed it had conquered nature. It had survived the wildness of the gold rush, vigilante justice, and political corruption. It felt invincible. That night, the city was alive. The grand opera houses were filled with the legendary tenor Enrico Caruso finishing a performance of Carmen. The saloons of the Barbary Coast, a district infamous for its danger and debauchery, were roaring with sailors and prospectors. In the opulent Palace Hotel, the largest and most luxurious hotel in the world, guests slept under crystal chandeliers, cocooned in a bubble of wealth and security. The city was a tinderbox, though no one seemed to notice. A vast, sprawling metropolis built primarily of wood. Hundreds of thousands of people packed onto a narrow peninsula, living in ornate Victorian homes that were marvels of carpentry, but also perfect fuel for a fire. They went to sleep that night, believing in their city's permanence, in its unshakable glory. They were wrong. They were sleeping on a time bomb. Deep beneath the sleeping city, two colossal plates of the Earth's crust, the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate, had been locked in a silent, titanic struggle. For centuries, the strain had been building along a massive fracture in the Earth known as the San Andreas Fault. At 12 minutes past 5, the strain became too much. The lock broke.
It started as a tremor, a gentle shudder that might have been a passing streetcar, but it didn't pass. It grew. In seconds, the shudder became a violent, convulsive heave. The ground began to move not just back and forth, but up and down in sickening wave-like motions. Inside homes, people were thrown from their beds. Furniture skidded across floors like demonic toys. Pianos toppled and chimneys crashed down through roofs, spraying brick and mortar into bedrooms. On the streets, the cobblestones rolled and buckled. Ornate Victorian towers twisted and snapped, plunging into the avenues below. The noise was apocalyptic, a symphony of destruction composed of splintering wood, grinding metal, shattering glass, and the rising screams of a terrified populace. This was a magnitude 7.9 earthquake, one of the most powerful in American history. The shaking lasted for what felt like an eternity, but in reality was somewhere between 45 and 60 seconds. An entire minute where the solid world ceased to exist. In his suite at the Palace Hotel, Enrico Caruso awoke to find his room pitching like the deck of a storm-tossed ship. His valet was thrown across the room. Plaster rained down from the ceiling. Convinced his powerful voice had somehow caused the disaster, the world's greatest singer clutched a signed photograph of President Theodore Roosevelt, his mind reeling in terror. Across town, in a wooden house on Dolores Street, a young bank clerk named P. Barrett was jolted awake. He later wrote, "I was awakened by a terrifying shaking. It was not a tremor, but a grinder. The house was twisting and groaning as if it would be torn apart." The city's magnificent city hall, a monument of stone and steel that had taken 27 years and a fortune to build, was reduced to a hollowed-out ruin in less than a minute. Its grand dome, once a symbol of civic pride, was now a skeletal wreck. But as the dust began to settle, as the survivors stumbled out into the gray dawn light to witness the sheer scale of the devastation, they would soon learn a horrifying truth. The earthquake was not the main event. It was just the opening act. The real killer, the monster that would truly consume San Francisco, was already being born in the rubble. Fire. Dozens of them at first. The earthquake had severed gas mains, toppled chimneys, and overturned stoves in kitchens where people were just beginning to prepare breakfast. In the wreckage of homes and businesses, small flames began to lick at the splintered wood and dry debris. This was the city's worst nightmare, and the one man who could have led the fight against it was already a casualty. Fire Chief Dennis T. Sullivan, a man renowned for his skill and bravery, was at home when the quake struck. The chimney of the California hotel next door collapsed, crashing through his firehouse and into his bedroom. He was mortally wounded, leaving the San Francisco Fire Department leaderless at the precise moment it was needed most. It was a catastrophic blow. The second blow came from beneath the ground. As fire crews began to respond, they connected their hoses to the hydrants, turned the valves, and were met with a pathetic trickle, or nothing at all. The earthquake had shattered the city's water mains. The firefighters had the engines, the hoses, and the will to fight, but they had no water. They were soldiers without bullets, facing an army of flames.
One of the most infamous early fires started innocently enough. In a house on Hayes Street, a woman, wanting to make breakfast for her family amidst the chaos, lit her stove. She didn't know the chimney above had been damaged. Sparks ignited the wood, and soon her home was ablaze. It became known as the ham and eggs fire, a small domestic act that would birth a conflagration that would consume entire neighborhoods. By mid-morning, the dozens of small fires, fanned by a rising wind, had merged into several massive, uncontrollable firestorms. They swept through the wooden buildings of the working class south of Market District with terrifying speed. Eyewitnesses described the sound as a constant, deep-throated roar, punctuated by explosions as buildings collapsed. The heat was so intense it could be felt from blocks away. The sky turned a sickening shade of orange and black, and a pall of smoke began to blot out the sun. Panic set in. The city's 400,000 residents were now refugees in their own home. They poured into the streets, trying to escape the encroaching flames. They pushed carts, prams, and even dragged trunks filled with whatever cherished possessions they could salvage. They were a tide of humanity, flowing away from the fire, but with nowhere to truly go. They watched, helpless, as the city they knew, the city they loved, was eaten alive.
Author Jack London, who rushed to the scene, wrote, "All day Wednesday and all Wednesday night, all day Thursday and all Thursday night, the flames climbed the hills and descended into the valleys. There was no opposing them. The heated air rising made an enormous suck. It was a firestorm, and it moved with the speed of a cyclone." With the fire department crippled, the city's mayor, Eugene Schmitz, made a desperate call for help to the U.S. Army stationed at the Presidio on the city's northern tip. Brigadier General Frederick Funston took charge. Lacking water and leadership, Funston made a fateful and highly controversial decision. He would fight fire with fire. The plan was to use dynamite and artillery to demolish buildings in the path of the firestorm, creating massive fire breaks, gaps the flames couldn't cross. In theory, it was a sound military tactic. In practice, it was an utter disaster. The soldiers, inexperienced in demolition, often used too much dynamite or used it incorrectly. The explosions shattered buildings, but instead of creating clean breaks, they often just created more flammable rubble. Worse, the blast sent showers of sparks and burning embers flying over the intended fire breaks, starting new fires on the other side. They were in effect helping the fire spread faster. For 2 days, this was the reality. The constant thudding boom of dynamite became the city's new heartbeat. The fire advanced, relentless and unstoppable. It consumed the cheap wooden tenements and the grand mansions of Nob Hill with equal ferocity. It devoured churches, libraries, theaters, and thousands of homes. The opulent Palace Hotel, once thought to be fireproof, became a fortress under siege. Its staff fought valiantly, using the hotel's own water reserves to douse the flames. But the inferno surrounding it was too powerful. By late afternoon, the palace was burning. The situation on the streets devolved into a strange mix of heroism and lawlessness. While many citizens helped their neighbors, pulling people from the rubble and sharing what little food and water they had, others saw opportunity in the chaos. Looting became rampant. In response, Mayor Schmitz issued a chilling proclamation, posted on walls and telegraph poles. The federal troops, the members of the regular police force, and all special police officers have been authorized by me to kill any and all persons found engaged in looting or in the commission of any other crime. It was martial law. Order was to be maintained at the end of a gun. There are many accounts, some disputed, of looters being shot on sight, their bodies left in the street as a warning. The Paris of the West had become a vision of hell. The survivors fled to the city's open spaces. Golden Gate Park, the Presidio, and the beaches became vast, sprawling refugee camps. Tens of thousands of people, from the richest banker to the poorest laborer, were suddenly homeless, united by their shared loss. They watched, from these safe havens, as the fiery destruction of their world painted the night sky. One of the most dramatic stands against the fire came at the U.S. Mint. The magnificent stone building held a third of the nation's gold reserves. Its superintendent and his employees, aided by soldiers, refused to abandon it. For hours, they fought the inferno, using water from the building's own small sewer system to wet down the roof and walls. The building's windows, fitted with iron shutters, glowed red hot, but they held. Miraculously, the mint and the nation's gold survived. By Thursday, the third day, the firestorm was approaching its peak. It was now a 2-mile-wide wall of flame sweeping west toward the wide boulevard of Van Ness Avenue. This was it, the city's last line of defense. Van Ness was 125 feet wide, and leaders believed if they could hold the line here, they could save the unburned western half of the city. This time, the dynamiting would be different. It would be systematic, massive, and brutal. They decided to sacrifice the entire eastern side of the Grand Avenue. House by house, block by block, they dynamited the beautiful mansions that lined the street, creating the largest firebreak the world had ever seen. It was a desperate, city-saving act of self-destruction.
For hours, the fate of San Francisco hung in the balance on Van Ness Avenue. The fire roared up to the eastern side, a monster of unimaginable heat and power. It leaped at the gap, but the break was too wide. The dynamiting, so disastrous before, had finally worked. And then, as if by a miracle, nature, which had unleashed the horror, offered a moment of grace. The fierce winds that had been fanning the flames began to die down. A light rain began to fall over the smoldering ruins, helping to extinguish the last of the great fires. The roaring stopped. Silence, broken only by the crackle of cooling embers and the distant sound of weeping, fell over the city. The fire that ate an empire was finally dead. The dawn of Saturday, April 21st, revealed a landscape of utter annihilation. The heart of one of America's greatest cities was gone. The statistics are staggering, almost impossible to comprehend. Over 28,000 buildings were destroyed across nearly 500 city blocks. The official death toll for decades was listed at around 478. This was a deliberate lie crafted by city officials to downplay the disaster and encourage reinvestment. Modern historians and researchers now place the true death toll at over 3,000 people, possibly many more, with countless bodies incinerated without a trace. More than 225,000 people, over half the city's population, were left homeless. They were living in tent cities, dependent on aid that was flowing in from across the country and around the world. But in the ashes, something incredible began to stir – the spirit of San Francisco. Before the rubble was even cold, the people began to talk of rebuilding. The unofficial slogan of the city became the damnedest, finest ruins. There was a defiant pride, a refusal to be beaten. Signs scrawled on the boards of temporary businesses captured this spirit perfectly. A barbershop put up a sign that read, "Earthquake and fire shook us but couldn't shave us." A restaurant sign declared, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we may have to go to Oakland." The rebuilding was astonishingly fast. It was also chaotic and, in many cases, corrupt. But it was relentless. The city that rose from the ashes was different. The old, ornate wooden city was gone, replaced by a more modern metropolis of steel and stone, built with a newfound, hard-won respect for the power of the earth. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire was more than just a local disaster. It was a turning point in American history. It was the first great natural catastrophe to be documented in detail by photography and moving pictures, shocking the world. It led to the birth of modern seismology and the development of earthquake-resistant engineering. It reshaped the American West, briefly shifting the center of financial power to rival Los Angeles while San Francisco recovered. Ultimately, the story of 1906 is a timeless and terrifying reminder. A reminder of our fragility, of how quickly the worlds we build can be brought to ruin by forces far beyond our control. But it is also a powerful story of resilience, a testament to the human capacity to endure the unthinkable, to stand amidst the ashes of a dead empire and have the courage to build it all again. The fire of 1906 forged the identity of modern San Francisco, a city that knows it lives on borrowed time, on the edge of a sleeping giant. What do you think is the most shocking part of this story? The failed dynamiting, the shoot-to-kill order, or the sheer speed of the destruction? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We spend countless hours researching and telling these vital stories from our past. If you found this journey into the inferno of 1906 engaging and informative, please help support the channel by hitting that like button. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to TSF History and ring the bell so you can join us for our next exploration of the past. Thank you for watching.